Welcome to the first episode of Stump the Creator, and Trace is actually one of our ambassadors for the virtual tournaments and also a few other things, and he thought that he could stump the creator. Yes, there are some questions when it comes to wording. That's not much of the stumping the creator as much as terminology we need to fix. But he came up with one that I'm not going to blame it on that. I'm going to blame it on creative thinking. But also it could be considered some of the terminology. But this one he's asking about the card Guy Fawkes. So his question is, Zach, I have a problem for you. Guy Fawkes says when you play Guy Fawkes in an opponent's land, they lose 300 morale. He cannot be discarded until the land changes hand. Now that's actually the term. That's actually the wording on the card. He cannot be discarded until the land changes hands, and typically you can take a land only when the land is empty. And to make that land empty, you would have to discard him by either attacking the land or using the card's ability, but to do so would be to ignore his ability. Thus, he can never be discarded except under rare circumstances. This makes a confusing paradox for gameplay, especially for cards like the Atomic Bomb, because it renders the land uninhabitable. Thanks, Trace. This is actually one of 3 that he gave me for this Stump the Creator episode. So, okay, this is not too difficult, but it's more of, yeah, the terminology might need to be fixed when it comes to this, but again, the wording says, when you play Guy Fawkes in an opponent's land, they lose 300 morale. He cannot be discarded until the land changes hands. Okay, so to Trace's point, if he cannot be discarded until the land changes hands, when does the land change hands? It's when the last person is discarded. So the question is, what happens exactly first, or is it instantaneous? When you kill off the last person, that land automatically becomes yours. It's not like you have to come back to it and take it again. Some people have had that question. But as soon as that person is killed off, the land becomes yours. It's an instantaneous movement. So, in this sense, yes, it might be written better, but it actually makes sense because as an instantaneous movement, Guy Fawkes moves out at the same time that it changes hands. So he is able to leave because it changed hands. Hope that makes sense. I'm not just trying to push around the question, but here is another question when it comes to from Trace about Guy Fawkes. In addition to the Guy Fawkes email, if you have 2 lands, both full to the limit of 4 cards, with one of them containing Guy Fawkes, and your opponent plays Mount Vesuvius Eruption on the land with Fawkes in it, and it must be discarded, what happens to Fawkes? Since he cannot be discarded, does he still sit in the empty battlefield? Okay, so flip over to Mount Vesuvius. It's an event. Again, I did not look at these beforehand because I want you to be able to stump me before. So now I just have to find Mount Vesuvius. I have the book of every single card that we have produced right now. And I have to find Mount Vesuvius. You'd think that it would be on the M's. Look at that, it's on the M's. Okay, Mount Vesuvius. The abilities say, Vesuvius destroys an opponent's land. He or she must discard the land and lose 500 morale points. Okay, so the guy must discard. Now let me also say that by changing hands, the terminology could be cleaned up, but changing hands does not only mean that it has to go to another person. There are cards, much like Mount Vesuvius, much like the Chernobyl card, where it wipes out the land. Changing hand could also be discarded because it's changing your hand. You don't have it anymore. It's no longer in your battlefield. That's a change of hand. So in that sense, Mount Vesuvius takes out that land. Guy Fawkes goes away. He is discarded. He does not discard until the land changes hands. There you go. This one's actually easier to understand than the last one. But yes, the terminology should be tweaked a little bit. But if you understand that it's instantaneous in the first question, it's an instantaneous movement, and then also the Mount Vesuvius eruption, when the card changes hands or is discarded, Guy Fawkes disappears. He's gone. So Trace, good job on trying to stump the creator. I do need to fix the terminology. I totally agree. But I can't actually say that stumped me. So try again. And actually, Trace actually did that. He came up with another question. He has a third question. This one is about South Africa, which was answered last week during Anna's question. So he says this, Zach, this one is an addition to Anna's question about South Africa. If your opponent has South Africa and you played an explorer while the only land you had was full, what happens to the explorer? Can it even be played at all? Yes, it can. Because remember, you can discard any card from your battlefield at any time during your turn. So, but that card has to be there for one turn. Now, if you put 4 cards in that land all at the same turn, one, you're breaking the rule because you can only play 3 at a time. So you have 4 cards, at least one of them has been there for one turn. That means you have to discard that one card if you want that explorer to stay there. And then the next turn, that land will now open up. But remember, South Africa, let me read you the actual terminology of it, of South Africa. Under the S's, there we go, South Africa. For the next 2 rounds, your opponents must add an additional turn to discover a new land. So, in order to keep that explorer active, he has to be in the battlefield. In order to keep him in the battlefield, you have to remove someone from the full land, put him in the discard, and put that explorer there. So it causes a lot more struggle just for that opponent having South Africa. So that's a powerful card to have because you're controlling the exploration and the civilization of your opponent. So remember, when you're stacking your deck, remember to keep South Africa in there because that's going to help you take control of your opponent's growth and expansion. So Trace, thank you so much for the first episode of Stump the Creator. I hope this answers your questions. And I appreciate any questions that you guys might have. Again, I'm open for another stumping. Send them my way. Thanks a lot. We'll talk to you. If you have any comments or questions, add them to the comments below. Otherwise, we'll see you tomorrow actually. Take care. Bye.